Take 4. Today I'm continuing my coverage of the iPhone 16 Pro Max and its video and photo capabilities. And one of the things I thought would be a big improvement and something worth considering the upgrade was the new 48 megapixel ultra wide camera. And so today, that's what I'm testing out again for both photo and video, and some of the results may surprise you. So to demo this new lens, what I'm going to do is shoot with my 16 Pro Max, that's the new phone, and my 15 Pro Max. This is from the previous generation. They both have basically the same sensor, same wide angle, except for the new one is 48 megapixel and the old one's 12 megapixel. What I mean is the field of view and the aperture is still the same. And so first up, we'll look at some photos. And for the photos, I am shooting with Pro RAW, Apple's version of RAW. And as a side note, now with the 16 Pro, you've got more choices. You can do Pro RAW Max, and you can choose different Pro RAW formats now. You can do JPEG lossless, JPEG XL lossless, or JPEG XL lossy. All right, so right here is the 48 megapixel, just a standard looking wide shot. But you can see as I go in there to 100%, you can really push in. That's a big benefit with photo. Now here's the 15 Pro Max, and looks good on the wide, but when you go into 100%, you just don't get near as much resolution, and that's a big difference. Now side by side, they look very similar, except again when you go to 100%. And there's one thing though that I want to note, and I'll talk about it in this next setup. Same thing here first though, is the 48 megapixel. Looks really nice. Then you push into 100% and you can see you can really go in close. And then note too that the depth of field, the shallow depth of field, the trees on the right, actually shows up pretty decent, especially for a wide angle look. And now here is the 15 Pro Max. Same as before, it looks good on the wide. And when you push in, you just don't have as much resolution. The 48 megapixel is much higher. Now, here's what I wanted to mention real quickly, and you'll see this as a recurring pattern throughout. The 16 Pro Max has a different look than the 15 Pro Max. This is the native camera app. It has what I would almost call a lower contrast look. Now, I don't know if this is lens coating or whether it's the newer sensor or whether it's the way computational imaging is working. These are shot in Apple RAW, but nonetheless, this is a recurring theme you'll see throughout this video with not only photo, but with video too. And now here's a shot of me that my wife took with the ultra wide camera, trying to show some skin tone. Same thing here, you can really push in very far, and I'm editing this in 4K by the way. Now on the 15 Pro Max, the framing is not exactly the same, but it's pretty similar. Same thing, as you push in, the resolution of course is just not the same. And so reframing with these photos in post-production is a big difference with the 48 megapixel, and that's really where it shines. This would be the same if you were cropping a photo in Photoshop or if you're reframing in post-production. Now here are a couple more photo examples that I'll just let play here. You can look at the differences, and then we'll jump into some video samples. One note here, with the 16 Pro Max shooting in night mode, you get 12 megapixel, not the full 48 megapixel, which is actually the same as the 15 Pro Max. And when you see these side by side, the 15 Pro Max looks like it does better, even though of course this is computational imaging. All right, and now I'm going to shoot some video. So I'm using the native camera app, and I'm using the 0.5 again, which is the ultra wide. And I am just shooting in standard HEVC, SDR, not HDR. All right, now some bright day exterior with video. And this, of course, the camera does very well. You're not gonna see really any difference here, except maybe in the shadow areas. Here's the 15 now, and looks very similar to the 16. Even side by side, these look very similar. I would say that the 16 does exhibit a little bit less contrast, especially in the shadow areas. But otherwise, this shot's pretty similar. And same with this shot. Although you'll notice later in this example, when I go into the shadow, look at my shirt and my face, because it does look different compared to the 15. Now here's the 15. The first part of the shot looks pretty much identical, but then when I get into the shadow, and I'm not seeing it visually changing, but I think computational imaging is kicking in. And I had the settings locked, by the way, but of course, dynamic tone mapping will automate. And so you can really see what I'm talking about here in the side-by-side comparison. Again, the beginning looks normal, looks fine. They look very similar, although the fence on the 16 in the background may be a little bit brighter. And it's definitely brighter once I get here into the shade. And my face and my shirt are brighter and less contrasty as well. And now the tougher stuff, and that's shooting in low light. And this shot is much more low light than you would think. I am using the native camera app and I locked the settings, but it does auto ISO to get the proper exposure. And by itself, this looks noisy, it looks fine, but when it's compared to the 15, you can really see more of a difference. Now on YouTube with the compression, you may not be able to see as big of a difference, but there is a difference, and the 15 has a little more contrast, and again, it's just better in low light. Side by side here, I'll freeze frame it. The 16 on the left just looks muddier. It has more video noise and also, again, less contrast. And of course, this has no color correction, I should say. And then on the right, the 15, it just has a better looking image in this low light situation. Now, once I get more into the actual sunlight, the images look much more similar, but again, the 16 is less contrasty. Now this shot is the same shot I did earlier with the photo, and you can see how dark it actually is. It's basically pitch black. And so no phone is going to perform well in here, so it's an extreme example, but you can see the difference between the two. The 15 performs better, it's just a little bit of a cleaner image. Again, not perfect by any stretch, but it is cleaner in the low light environment. And here you can really see side by side. I'll pause it. The 15 on the right is just not nearly as noisy. It's noisy, but not only that, it isn't as soft because of the low light. The high ISO softens the image. And then when I get more into the light, although it's still very dark, for the sensor especially, the 15 still just performs better. Now I wanted to try Apple Log, and this is with the native camera app, and this is very dark. The light behind me looks good on the wall, but it's just so noisy. This would be unusable. You would never really do this anyway. I'm just doing it for a test. I guess if you were vlogging or something, you might do this. And in this situation, the 15 actually looks worse to me. I'm not sure why. It has like a blue tint. And so here I would almost call it a tie, and maybe the 16 is better, but really they both are really bad in this situation. And so Apple Log didn't really make a difference. Blackmagic camera app 16 Pro low light, ISO 400. And now here I tried Apple Log, but I used the Blackmagic camera app, which by the way is kind of glitchy right now with the 16 Pro, but I locked the ISO at 400. iPhone 15 Pro and Apple Log, ISO 400 locked,
and yeah, see if it's any better.
So there's no computational imaging going on here because it's Apple logged and then the settings are all locked. And so the 15 performs better in this situation as well. And so in the end, I think it's pretty obvious that the photo features of the 48 megapixel ultra wide on the new 16 Pro is great, totally worth using from a photography point of view. But on the video side, if you're in great light, you don't really see much difference. And if you're in low light, kind of a surprise, but not really, because if you have more megapixels, that can make low light performance worse. And so yeah, in low light, the 15 Pro Max ultra wide is better than the 16 Pro Max ultra wide. And that's one reason that I always say to get the best results, use the main camera on the iPhone, and put a wide angle lens on that, like from Sandmark or Reflex or B-Script, etc. That way you'll get the highest quality results because the main sensor is the best one on the phone. But overall, the 16 Pro Max is a great phone. If you already have a 15 though, I would skip this update. If you're on a 14 or before, definitely worth the consideration.